Everyone, good evening. So excited for this conversation. We'll just be waiting for people to join, for people to come in the space. And I see Marla is here. Okay, I've just accepted your invitation, Marla. Hey,
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Good, good, good. My PA fell through, so I might have a little baby up with me, but hopefully he'll behave. So
That's completely fine. The more the merrier. How's your day been so far before we get into the conversation?
My day's been pretty good. Day's been pretty good. Pretty solid day today. Just been calling people back for interviews, so I'm hoping that everything will I will have somebody by the weekend.
Oh, lovely. Fingers crossed. I'm noticing that your video, I think it's paused for me. I'm not sure if it's paused for viewers as well. I can hear you though.
Oh, no, I can hear you and see you just fine.
Ah, on my end, it just shows that it's like loading for your picture. Okay, now it's moving, but it's not.
It's moving, but it's not.
No, it's not moving right now. Everyone in
Maybe
the
we should
audience.
ask people if they
Yeah.
can see everything, okay?
Oh, okay. Perfect. As long as you all can see Marla moving, that's all that matters.
Yeah, that would be
Okay,
great.
perfect. Cool. It's all on my end. All right. Well, I guess we can get into the conversation so that we have ample time to answer these questions. So, welcome everyone to our Every Black Body live series, a space for conversations that bring a deeper understanding to the intersections of Black lives and supports collaborative approaches to end HIV for every Black body. Every Black Body live series centers the voices, experiences, and leadership of Black people. This live series is hosted by United We Rise, a pioneering Black-led intersectional initiative focusing on uniting and mobilizing a collective force to end the HIV epidemic and uplift the quality of life for Black people. United We Rise is partly funded by Gilead Sciences, and one of our key focuses of the United We Rise is sexual and gender identity. We value sex positivity and sexual expression as a form of liberation. To love our bodies and hold an affirming space free from sexism, misogynoir, and male-centeredness is central to our liberation from traditional expectations of gender, relationship structures, sexuality, and sexual roles. For September, we are hosting a two-part discussion on sexual healing. I'm your host, Catherine Labiran, one of the planning committee members of United We Rise, human rights advocate, researcher, writer, and so on. But most importantly, today I am joined by the wonderful Marla Renee Stewart, sexologist, author, intimacy and relationship coach, speaker, owner of Velvet Lips, everything, just everything. I don't think
All
I
the
could
time,
express all the
everything.
many
Yes.
things that you are in introducing you. And one of the wonderful things that have allowed our paths to intersect is through Sex Down South, which I'm really excited to ask you about, but then also the role that you played as an influencer for United We Rise and how you also attended our 2020 convening. So thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and yeah, get to all the things.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So I think I'm just gonna jump into some questions and just see how it flows. And also, those of you who are watching this IG live, please feel free to ask questions throughout the conversation because I know it can be hard to retain questions sometimes. And then towards the end, I'll be sure to look through the chat and answer or ask Marla if she would answer some of them for us. So please, can you tell us about your background, your interests, and the journey that led you to this place and this moment doing the work that you currently do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think part of it was me growing up as as a curious kid, but also my mom was pretty sex positive in the sense that she didn't want me to become a teenage mom like she did. So she was very much an advocate of knowing your body, know all the things, because you want to take a hold of your own sexual responsibility, So as I got older and into college, I started to study human sexuality, and gender and all the things, because I was just fascinated by it. And the fact that I came out when I was 16, I came out as bisexual. So just thinking about that, thinking about how I did not see a lot of people that were like me where I lived in the small town suburb of Sacramento. It was I was excited to be in San Francisco and then experience like all the things. And so as I got through college and studied human sexuality and LGBT studies, as a graduate student, I came out to Atlanta and continued to study gender and sexuality through the scope of sociology, instead of through psychology. And with that, I got the opportunity to do it under the public health sphere. And so with that, I was able to study public health and HIV and go to HIV conferences and really learn so much around HIV. And I continue to always keep updated. I always keep going to conferences just to make sure I'm updated on the information on the things that are happening. So, and with that said, I just also study all the things. So, with my specialties around communication and sex skills, it's for me, it's kind of natural to bring all of those elements into the work. So then I created Velvet Lips, which is my sexuality education company. And I co-created Sex Down South with my lovely business partner, Tia, where we make sure that we always have, reproductive justice organizations on deck. We always have someone who's talking about, HIV or STIs, or STDs. Now I know CDC is like STD now. Just making sure that people are always getting the fun parts of sexual health, because I think a lot of times we tend to focus on things that are sex negative. Those are the things that often get funding. And so, yeah, I think it's just super important to talk about what are the positive things, because those are the things that are going to get us juicy and happy. So that is my goal in life around sexual liberation, and to get the movement going, especially around folks who have been traditionally marginalized. So folks of color, Black and brown folks, queer folks, trans folks, disabled folks, sex workers, survivors, all of those people who traditionally kind of get, swept under the rug in the sexuality field. For the most part, but we're getting better. We've gotten a lot better, and I think I definitely contribute a lot of that to the way that Sex Down South has moved, and the way that we have, brought the folks along to say like, hey, look what we're doing. You should be doing this too.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you so much for the work that you've done and how you've contributed to the move to explore conversations around sex in the positive light, to allow people to be able to rejoice in spaces. I feel like from experiences in Sex Down South, I've had so many powerful experiences, just seeing people who had gone through something traumatic in their recent past, and them just being able to explore things that they've never done before, and to talk about it and to research it and to learn about it. So I have so much kudos to give you for the spaces that you've created.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Of course. And so in learning more about you in preparation for this conversation, I learned that you have done from your resume, but you may have even done even more than this, but like 6 years of research in the HIV field. And I was blown away by that. So I was wondering if you could share what you learned through that process and how that informed your current work as a sexologist.
Oh, absolutely. So through my work, as a graduate student in the public health department, so I was in the Community Center for Research, and there we would get on the ground. So we would walk in neighborhoods, and we would recruit people to take HIV tests. And we say, hey, you want to take HIV tests? And we did that research, and through that, I became a certified phlebotomist. So I took people who tested positive. I took their blood, and I really, I think nothing hits you as hard as when you start to do counseling around when someone learns about their HIV status. Mm-hmm. In front of you. Nothing prepares you for that. I mean, I dreamt about it. It was, to feel like how people were feeling, and just to see just how they reacted, and, not really knowing or going through life. And it really hit me, because as much as we like to have fun, and as much as we like to be sexual, I think it's super important that we are constantly being tested, and we are doing our due diligence to get tested, to talk to our partners, to talk to our lovers, to talk to our Johns, to talk to whomever, so that we can have a full grasp of hold on one second. Oh, this little one, I tell you. With that work, I was able to talk to, the trans women who are doing survival sex work. I was able to, talk to the sex workers that were on the street from, 7 a.m. until 4 a.m. It was very intense, but I really learned a lot. And by going to the conferences, I was able to learn what the doctors were doing, how they were connecting to people because a lot of times when you have people who, are out on the streets, like, they're not really connected to research. So for us to be sort of the bridge between sort of the academic, the medical doctors, and the folks on the street, it was really powerful to see both sides and how they were moving through the HIV epidemic. Mm-hmm. And so I learned a lot about reproductive technologies around HIV. I learned a lot of communication skills when it comes to talking to folks about HIV status. I talked a lot about, or I learned a lot about, folks who were, folks living with HIV versus, or being in a relationship with someone who wasn't, living with HIV. So it was really, it was powerful. But what I really did learn was that people were traumatized. Once they learned of their, positive status, they were sad. I know some women, especially some trans women, were feeling like, didn't even think about like having sex ever again, or like thinking that like, that the status is the end all be all. And for us to be like, no, that's not the case at all. For me, it was very helpful to, like I said, be on the ground and talk to people and be like, no, that's not the case. These are the things that you can do. These are the meds you need to take, but you got to take them every day. This is the stuff that you need to do in order to live like a happy, healthy, life. And, I've had family members who have died from complications from HIV. I've had cousins who've left, their 6 kids. I've had cousins who've left lovers because they didn't have the will to live after being diagnosed as HIV positive. Like they took their meds for a while, but then were just depressed. So my goal is to, when I bring that work into my field, is to say, hey, these are the ways that you can live a healthy, happy life, be sexual, be fun, and educate folks, the folks that are around you, right? Like, try to understand sort of the shame and stigma, and then just, just kind of, I mean, it's harder, it's one thing for me to say because, as a person who's not HIV positive, I can be like, just push yourself to say it, but it's hard. I've seen what it does to people, but my goal is to help, folks who are, people living with HIV, that I can be, a support system to say like, hey, you are amazing, and these are the ways that you're amazing, and this is the way we need to get through this, whatever this particular thing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So much of that resonates with me, and I feel like what you're touching on here is a perfect intersection into the next question that I have for you. That is basically if you could share insights on how we can center sexual freedom for people living with HIV, given that, in this work, so much of the narrative is around statistics and just all the sadness and grief and things that you were just naming, but also we are curious about what pleasure and play and exploration, and yeah, if you just have any insights on how we can continually center sexual freedom, specifically in the lives of people living with HIV.
So one thing I think is really important, and whenever I've talked to folks who are living with HIV, but who are like role models, folks who are, speakers, leaders in that realm, it seems like there's a big hesitation to be a role model. I feel like the person that I know who has done such beautiful and amazing work, Tori Cooper, like, beautiful, like she does amazing work, and she can talk about sex and sexuality in a way that feels good and down to earth and like real, and can and really puts things into perspective for folks. And we need more leaders like her. We need more leaders that can speak, and as much as we have tried to get folks to come out to Sex Down South, sometimes it's like, the hesitation is like, you want me to talk about my my sexual life as an HIV, as a person living with HIV, like, and I'm like, yeah, I want to know all the dirty details. Like, people need to know, like, at Sex Down South, we encourage, the curiosity. We encourage people to find out, because, the more we know, the better we're able to navigate our sexual lives. So, yeah, so many seconds on how great Tori Cooper is. Yes, she is absolutely amazing. But like, I would love to see more people who want to talk about sex, and who can speak about it, in a way that feels good, and I guess sort of help to destigmatize what that looks like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I'm glad that some of that work is being done by people like Tori and others. So we've been touching on Sex Down South, and I really just I want to hype up Sex Down South for a second before we even talk about it. I want people who are listening to this live who aren't aware of Sex Down South to get to know it. So I would love if you could just share a little bit about where the inspiration to create Sex Down South came from, and yeah, just how this year's Sex Down South was as well, because I know you did the hybrid conference, which I believe was the first time, but I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So Sex Down South was born, it's T and I's baby. We were sitting on my red couch at the time in Atlanta, and we had done some events together already. We had done like I had first done an event for her, and then we had done my birthday parties, and we had like over 200 people at my house, just, having fun. So we were like, well, we can get all of these random people together, because I just, I'm the type of person that just attracts like all the people. So like, I had everything from a mobile spank booth to a Mexican rock band to fire eaters to, families with kids and pie eating contests. And it was a really great time. So we were like, we attract all these different types of people. They need to come together. We all need to learn from each other. Like, what is a space that we can do that? And so, I had the idea of a conference, and she was just like, Sex Down South. And I was like, yes. Mm-hmm. And we just ran with it. We put a team together and had like no money, just freaking manifesting just the shit out of it, basically, and it ended up having our first conference, and it was beautiful and amazing, and everybody just fell in love with it just like we did. And it's been every year since. So last year during the pandemic, we had it online, which was great. It was a different kind of vibe, but it was still pretty fun, but it's still a lot of hard work. And then this year we're like, well, let's do a hybrid. Well, we did it, but it was super difficult. We were glad that we could help with the accessibility factor, with having it online and everything. And even though I ask people to present way, because it's sort of hard to like get captions or not only make it accessible for other people, but also accessible in ways that we would be able to provide. So we did the hybrid, and we did it in person as well, and it turned out as well as it could be. But it was good. We had a really good time, and I'm really thankful about Sex Down South because we have a healing space. So if you feel like triggered or you're feeling some type of way, we have folks who you can go into a healing space. You can get your cards read. You can get, do some yoga, do some dancing. We have on-call therapists who got worked this year, apparently. Usually, I guess it's interesting because previous years, I've always had on-call therapists, but hardly anybody has used them. And this year it was on and popping. So I'm guessing a lot of the trauma from the pandemic really probably affected people or whatever they might have been going through. So we definitely got use of that, and I'm so thankful for the volunteers for that. And we had online on-call therapists as well. And then we also had we had our dungeon, and it's called the Labyrinth. And so we started that a few years ago, and it was a big hit as always. I think the Kinksters, they love Sex Down South. They love to be in that environment. So that was really, really great as well. And of course we have our nighttime activities, mingling and a show, just so we can let loose, because during the day we're learning. And so we think it's super important to not only learn and take in that information, but also let loose. You know what I mean? Have the fun, network, socialize, get to know people who don't look like you, or get to know people who do look like you,
Yeah.
or who, you know, are involved in the same thing. So we have affinity groups for that. So we really just try to provide a lot for the people who come in, so they know that they are loved, and if there's something missing, that to let us know, because we will try our best to make it happen. We really want this to be for the people. So sort of, it is what you make of it, but you let us know what you need, and we aim to make it happen for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you have done a fantastic job, and I can only imagine how it was trying to coordinate both in person and the virtual experience.
Woo!
Uh, that sounds like I don't even
It was
know
a
what.
lot. It was a
Yeah.
lot. But we had an excellent team. We had an
Mm-hmm.
excellent, excellent team. Oh, Tori joined. Yay. Just talking about you.
Hi, Tori. You've been praised rightfully so in so many different ways throughout this conversation. So really happy that you're here. Um, so, you know, in talking about holding so many different bodies of work, and also just how you've also held people through grief and all these different emotions and experiences, I'm wondering what you do to guard your mental, physical, and spiritual space, and what you do for pleasure and play.
Oh, yes. Wow, great questions. So the first one, to guard my, you know, mental and physical space, I meditate every morning. After I had this baby though, I don't think I meditated for the first 4 months because I just needed sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But I've gotten back into my meditation. I've gotten back into working out. Um, and that has helped me, you know, physically, but also mentally, like to check in with myself.
Mm-hmm.
So when people are going through it, or when people tell me, or you know, when my cousins were like, you know, I don't want to do this, I don't want to live anymore, you know, it was just sort of like, you know, I can't tell somebody like, you have everything to live for, because people are going to think what they're going to think. And so I think it's important to follow people's lead, to just be like, hey, you know, I'm here for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whatever it is you need, you know, I'm here for you. So don't think that you're alone, or don't think that you don't have someone to support you. But, you know, I'm here however you need me. And
Yeah.
sometimes you just need to listen. And so, you know, a lot of when we're thinking about care, specific, you know, care, when we're caring for others, we do have to meet people where they're at. So we
Mm-hmm.
can't force them to think how we want them to think. We can't, you know, say you should be thinking like this, and no, don't do that, or no, and put your judgments on people. So I think it's really, really important um, to listen intently, and to be available, but also just to say like, hey, do you want advice, or do you want me to listen? You know, what is it that you need? That makes me feel good. And then I have to leave it, because I have a family, you know, I have a wife and a kid, and, you know, and other things that my responsibility. So I can't, so the way that I guard it is just kind of like, I have to leave it in that space, and like, you know, I thank them for letting me be in that space, and then I have to go back, and that's just for my own protection, and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I limit my social media, if anybody can tell. I limit my social media. I limit my news intake. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't watch a lot of news. A lot of my friends are the ones who usually are texting me and letting me know about maybe certain events. Like I didn't even know who got president until like Tia texted me.
Wow.
Yeah, so I try to limit my news. Uh, I try to, yeah, just limit the negative stuff that can really damper my spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And so the ways that I do take care of myself, or the things that I love to do to have fun, is I love to dance. I love to dance. Oh my gosh. I went out dancing for the first time in ages last week in heels. Now, I have not worn heels since way before the baby. And I can't even tell. My back was like, oh, no, you didn't. But I love to dance. I love to play sports. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a basketball player. So I love to be active. I love to be in a body of water, a pool, an ocean. Um, I love to watch movies. I'm a huge fan of comedy and horror. It's comedy and horror. It's also fun. I love to read. I have a ton of books. You can't see them now, but I love to read. I have a ton of audible, like audiobooks, and I have a ton of just books. Of course, they're all like sexuality related because, I do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what else do I like to do? Um, I love what I do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
I love speaking to people, educating folks. Like that is what feeds me. When I see people's light bulbs go off, like that feels really good to me. So that's another way that I like to have fun and take care of myself. If I'm not doing my work, I'm not going to be happy.
Right.
So I just try to make sure I do that.
Mm-hmm. I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you are doing things to take care of yourself, that you went out dancing, that you wore the heels, that you're balancing that with basketball. It sounds like you have such a diverse and holistic way of caring for yourself.
Yeah, I try. When this one's not attached to my boob, definitely.
Yeah. So on the topic of your beautiful baby, congratulations, firstly.
Thank
Congrats.
you.
And I've said that a few times, but I would love if you could share what pregnancy and or your postpartum experience has taught you about your body and self, if it has taught you anything, and if these insights will in any way inspire new directions or explorations in your work.
Oh, absolutely. So the pregnancy journey, as a queer parent is, different from a lot, same for the most, or different from, the other folks. I, what I learned really is that there's a whole parent club that I didn't know existed. It's sort of like once you become a parent, you're like, oh my gosh, it's like the world becomes like full color. You're like, wait a minute. I feel like it's a secret club that nobody tells you about until you become a parent. And then you're like,
Mhm.
oh, this is a whole different world. So I learned that, and I thought that was pretty fascinating. Um, I learned that when people give you advice around giving birth, I'm totally like a hippie. So I did the natural birth center, and I was like,
Mhm.
no meds, I'm gonna push out this baby out of my vagina. And holy shit, when I was in that tub, I was like, there's no way this baby is coming out of here. This is crazy. What am I doing? I was like crying, like, there's no way. But what I also learned was like it's traumatizing.
Mhm.
And I was wondering, like, why aren't more people talking about the trauma of giving birth?
Mhm.
Um, it is absolutely traumatizing. And then part of me is like, I wonder if it's just like, why don't people talk about it? Maybe they don't
Mhm.
talk about it because it's trauma, it's traumatizing. So they're kind of like, let me just leave it. But I'm kind of like, if I just, I would tell my younger self that it's pretty traumatizing. You know what I mean? It's not an easy thing. Of course it can be done, but it's pretty traumatizing.
Mhm.
Um, but now that I know it, now I'm like, okay, well, second baby, now that I know what the trauma is going to be like, I guess I can do that again. But I learned that my body is capable of doing this thing that, uh, some people can't do, some people would love to do. So I feel privileged to be able to give birth. And what else did I learn? Postpartum. So like I said, I did the whole hippie thing. So my birth center took my placenta, which was shaped by like a heart, which is really cool, and dried it up and put it into pill form. So I took my placenta pills, and that helped to regulate my hormones. So I didn't experience a lot of that postpartum drop or depression or sadness that people usually get if they go to like hospitals or whatnot, or they don't have that opportunity to get their placenta dried. So I feel very fortunate and privileged about that too, that I was able to get those and have my hormones regulated and be good. So I pretty much remained pretty happy, but my identity was shifting. And I think as a person who loves my job and talking about sex, like shifting to parent was kind of like, oh, okay, I can't just do a call, or I can't take on a client, or I can't, because I have this baby attached to my boob. Like that was pretty, that was an adjustment. It was a really difficult adjustment for me. And I'm still adjusting, but like I said, I think now I'm getting back into my groove, and knowing how he moves and knowing how I can move and how we're moving together has been key to learning and growing over the past 5 months with him. So, and the adjustment, with my wife too. So, but yeah, overall, I'm happy. I'm happy about the journey, and I'm excited for, what's to come. And, this baby has my exact face. It's like Marla Jr. So it is bizarre and funny, and just, and he's adorable. So there.
Oh, I'm so excited for you and this journey and what this transition can bring from you, and all this new knowledge that you're gaining and how it's going to just inform your work. I feel like it's a beautiful time for you.
Yes, thank you. It is. I'm happy.
Yes. Loads of great stuff happening. So now to transition a bit into some questions that will explore healing. And before I go into them, actually, let me just reiterate, thank you all for being here. I'm going back and forth with Marla and just diving into these questions, but please ask questions on your mind. My friend's cat is making a little sneak peek into the live here. Co-facilitators of this conversation. Luna is one of them. But yeah, feel free to ask questions. So I would love to know, Marla, just from the perspective of someone who has integrated somatic and spiritual work into their training and workshops on sex and sexuality, can you tell us why you have decided to merge these different areas, and if you could just speak to the important mind, body, spirit connection?
Absolutely. So in my work and throughout my studies, because I come from such an interdisciplinary perspective, what I really learned was like, hey, sex therapy, I was like, oh, well, sex therapy. But then I learned like, okay, there's certain boundaries in sex therapy. You can't do this, you can't do that. And I was like, I don't want any boundaries like that. That doesn't feel good for me. But I do like the talk style. I do like you know, what you can, there's certain elements of sex therapy that I think are very useful that I think would be great. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take those elements and then I'm going to put it into my work. And then for somatic body work, I think there's so much, you can do so much with the power of touch. And for me, as a tactile person, to be able to touch someone and to feel their energy and to feel like, or to show them how to feel is like beautiful. And so I was like, I need that element. I need to be able to show people how to touch. When you get into this work, especially around sexuality education, you know, people want to know, how do I do this? How do I touch people? What are the skills that I need? And as a sex therapist, you're not able to address something like that. You're like, well, I can't show you, you know. Or maybe, I mean, I feel like sex therapy now is sort of progressed and maybe is changing. But I know when I was doing the work back in the day, I know you couldn't touch people. And I know they didn't encourage you to talk about your own experiences as well, kind of keep it at a distance. And even when I did therapy when I was younger, it was just sort of very keep it at a distance, you know what I mean? And I didn't really like that. So I wanted to be able to show the lessons that I learned, show how I've helped other people, or show or talk about experiences that maybe other clients or folks that around me have had, and how the difference was, or if there was a difference. And so yeah, anyway, there's that piece, the somatic bodywork piece. So being able to work people's energy, to understand the power of touch, where to touch them, thinking about erogenous zones, you know, what feels good, what doesn't. And then the comprehensive sex ed stuff, right? So a lot of times in sex ed, you know, what did you get in sex ed? Don't do this. This is the STDs you're gonna get. You know, this is pregnancy. You know, these are the things that are gonna happen. And I just think that it really robs people of like all the facets of sex, gender, and sexuality when we only focus on those sex negative things, right? Well, if we kind of see them in a sex negative light. But if we were to think about, can we talk about orgasms? Can we talk about healthy relationships? Can we talk about communications? Can we talk about sex skills? Like what that would look like in a comprehensive sex ed form. So anyway, I combined the talking points of sex therapy, the body work, and the comprehensive sex ed all in my curriculum, which I call a sexual strategist, basically. And so I'm hoping to launch either a certification program or and another program, just so people can see what they can do or how they can improve their sex lives and their relationships. So yeah, that's sort of the integrative strategy that I have, that I've been able to work with over the years.
Wow, that's incredible. So do you have visions for like what the end of the process would look like? Like, yeah, like if I was in the cohort, what would I get at the end?
Yeah, so I do. So I have a vision of doing like a manifesting a mate like program. So showing people how to manifest a lover. So showing them all how to manifest. So thinking about your core values, thinking about your sex skills, thinking about all of these different things. Because from the way that I've been working with people, you know, I've married couples, which has been amazing. I had to become a minister because they were like, can you marry us? Because, you know, that was great. So I really want to do sort of an all-encompassing. And then for, you know, couples or folks in relationships who have already, you know, they're already together and just need to improve their sex lives, like a nice little refresher course, you know what I mean? I think is just important to go on. So So those are the two things. And then, and like I said, the certification for the sexual strategist, uh, I really want to work on that too, but I gotta focus. I gotta focus. So my goal is to probably get that manifesting a mate program up first.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And I really love the idea of the refresher course. The idea that you can be with someone over a month and still have this kind of experience where you learn more about sex with them as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because, sometimes you just need to pick me up.
Mhm.
Sometimes people go in little downward spiral, they're doing the same thing over and over again. They're like, what do we do?
Yeah.
I think it's good to help them uh, get back on the horse.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so can you share with us the role that kink has played in your life? Because I know about kink in the sphere like conference and all these places. I'm wondering on the personal level, um, there has been a role that kink has been impactful.
Yeah, so it's so funny because I actually accidentally discovered kink. I was go-go dancing in San Francisco when I was in college, and I saw some kinksters in some, the leather gear, the collars and all that, and I was like, that would be great go-go dance gear. And so, like, I went to the Mr. S leather store and got some gear, and I was dancing, and somebody was like, "Oh, you were into kink?" And I was like, no, but I mean, I could be. I mean, tell me more about it. So from there, I was able just to learn more and really was like, oh, this is definitely a part of me. So I just sort of leaned in to kink and was able to explore in college and able to explore more as a graduate student and and then also think about it in an academic way as well. So so my journey around kink was, at first was like, oh, I I'm a submissive. I started off being like a submissive and wanting other people to sort of take the lead. But as I've grown, I was I realized like, nah, I'm good. Like, I think when I got to maybe my late 20s, early 30s, I started to be like, you know what? Actually, I want the power and the control. I think I've been looking at it in the wrong, in the not the way that I should be, or not the way that that felt good. Um, So, so yeah, kink has been an influence, my majority of my adult life.
Mhm.
For 20 years. I've been involved in kink. So, um, I just call myself just a general kinkster. I call myself a professional top and a private bottom. Therefore, like if I bottom for somebody, it's like somebody that I trust and love and like adore, that I know that I can be vulnerable with, who would take care of me. And so that's super rare. And it you probably would hardly ever see it in a public play.
Mhm.
So for the most part, people when they see me, it's mostly going to be a professional top situation. So um, uh, so yeah, that has sort of been my I guess kink journey. So now the things that I love to do, like I practice and teach the most. So I teach spanking, so impact play, so spanking, slapping, choking. Um, I've been into pussy torture, uh, just kind of like, any kind of play that anybody will let me
Mhm.
do um, as a sadist. I did a talk called "Embracing Your Inner Sadist,"
Mhm.
and it's sort of like you can recognize it as a kid. You know what I mean? Like, I see this ATL erotic artist say I was introduced to kink way early in life. Like, I
Mhm.
wasn't introduced to kink, but I was a sadistic kid. Um, and I tortured my best friend. We're still best friends to this day. You know, I think kids are resilient, but I tormented her, and I tormented my friends in high school. I was very demanding and very bossy. I forced food in people's mouths. I tell people that I was like a nice bully. Like,
Mm.
I used to do things to people, of course, without their consent, but then would hug them and love on them. Like, I would do this really, I guess, balanced emotional, um, uh, I don't know, worship and torture with people. So I never was, nobody ever came to me and hated me for it, but they recognized that I was doing it out of love, which I was. That's the way that I loved, was to hurt, not harm, right? But just to hurt them, just to see them wince in pain a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, So I think recognizing that as a kid, especially as an adult now, and be like, oh, this is where that comes from. And that's why maybe being a submissive didn't really feel good to me, because I wanted that power and I wanted that control and I wanted to do the topping. Um, so yeah, my journey has been a fun and complicated one, but I'm glad I was able to make those connections from childhood. You know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of times we don't make those connections, and it takes us a minute to understand like our own psyche when it comes to sexuality.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. And I feel like I'm still sitting with just how you were able to distinguish, your own positionality as being, I think, I want to paraphrase incorrectly, but being a public top, private bottom. Is that how you phrased it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm just really interested in how you were able to like learn that distinction, because I think you're touching on something really important about knowing when to be vulnerable. Because I hear so many times of people wanting to explore kink and BDSM and then being extremely submissive and trusting in a situation, and then of course due to circumstances that's completely not their fault, that turning into a traumatic experience that they have to heal from. So I'm wondering if you just have any like advice or insight for people who are trying to heal from that kind of experience, but then also just advice on how you're able to distinguish when and where to see the situation.
Yeah. So you kind of went out for a second. Can you just say the last part?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was just wondering, one, if you had like any advice on or insight on the experiences of people who have been in situations where they allowed themselves to be submissive and vulnerable, for example, like in a scene, and then that led to because it was a safe situation for them, but they want to play again, like they want to be open again. Just what that healing could look like, or what that exploration could look like in that scenario, but then also how you were able to distinguish and decide that there was two sides of you that could exist in two different scenarios when you feel safe. I hope that is coherent.
Yeah. So when thinking about like to be a submissive, and I think when you're entering a space, especially as a kinky person, or you just wanting to explore kink as a submissive, I think it's important to find somebody you trust, or somebody who's been in this industry for a long time. Because they are the ones who have the lessons, or maybe not even a long time, but someone who you could trust, that you could set boundaries with, that you've had conversations with, that you've discussed all the consent, the negotiating a scene, but knowing that they also have experience in what they're doing, right? Like, I'm not going to teach spanking if I don't know how to do it. You
Mm.
know what I mean? So it's like, knowing that you are, like whenever I'm at Sex Sounds House, I feel so fortunate because people just immediately come up to me like, Marla, can you play with me? Can you play me? Can you spank me? Can you slap me? Can you, and for me, that feels really beautiful. Number one, because I'm a sadist. Number two, because like people feel safe and secure with me. They know that I will take care of them and that I'm not going to harm them in any way. So I think for as a submissive, you need to find someone who is not going to, someone who has the experience, who knows the difference between those things, who knows what they're doing. Finding a mentor, I think, is always good. Being in a space that you feel good in is going to be great. So I think those are, with any kind of situation that's where you're going to be vulnerable, I think it's just super, super important that you go into it with someone that you feel secure, that you feel safe, that who knows their shit, that you know that they know. So yeah. And then check their references. Who's vetting for them? I think that's important to know too. Like if you know someone is, or if you don't know them, like ask for references. Like someone said, Marla, I don't really know you that well. Who are your references? Who do you know? And I'd be like, I'd list you 5 people, and I'm like, go talk to these people. They've seen me play. You can go ahead and talk to them and see, how they feel about me. So I think that's important too. It's like a job. You want to trust somebody with your body, and you want to prevent that trauma from happening, because guess what? You have that trauma happen. When's the next time you're going to do it again? Well, you don't know, because you don't know if the next person that you're with is going to have an issue. So it's super, super important to do your best to do the vetting and to, get the mentor, to learn the lessons, so that you can easily put yourself in that situation again without any doubts or fears.
Yeah, no, thank you for those insights. And I'm looking at the time, and I can't believe how quick time has gone. And I've just scrolled through, and I don't see any questions. But please, if you have a burning question, I would love if you could ask it, because we want to make this interactive as possible, even though we just have like a minute or 2 left. But Marla, I would love to just ask you one final question. And that's really just centering the experiences of Black people in this field. I'm wondering if there's any advice you'd give to people who are interested in doing similar work to you, but are worried that due to misogyny, that their work will be invisibilized, that they won't be heard.
So, one thing you have to do is, I feel like that's a very reasonable fear, as because of misogyny, that is a very reasonable fear. I always have a friend of mine who's always like, Marla, you should be so ahead in your career. People, they don't like Black women. What's going on? Why aren't you, this and that? And I'm just like, you know what? I'm doing what I love. I'm still doing it. But I think it's very important to have the allies and the accomplices who will speak up for you, who will, put you on those pedestals or give you those leads. And so I would say try your best not to fear, but align yourself and collaborate with, the powerful folks that are out there who are doing the work now. Get a mentor. I think it's just keep pursuing it. Keep pursuing it. Keep being determined, and like I said, just align yourself with the folks who are doing the good work, and that you can collaborate with to help you and them sort of, we got to come up together. That's what we have to do. We have to bring each other up. As Black folks, we gotta be like, here you go, come on, and that's what I try to do in my work, and I hope that other people are doing the same.
Yeah, thank you. And I see a question has just quickly sneaked in. So ATL Erotic Artist is asking, as a Black man who would like to be a submissive again, where should I seek a mistress I can truly trust?
Ooh, great question. So I think you're in Atlanta. So if you're in Atlanta, I suggest you going on to FetLife, and going into the local munches. So there's a few Black munches, or Black kink groups that are in Atlanta. So I would say go to a munch, hang out, see whom you like, see if there's a mistress there, or talk to people, see if there's recommendations. I think there's some really great mistresses out there. I love Chalk. I love Lady D. I love there's some, I don't know if they're called if they're the pro dom. Saying there's one pro dom. I don't know if she's there in Atlanta anymore, but there's people that you can find. But I highly suggest maybe just going to FetLife and seeking folks out that are in Atlanta. But there's plenty of mistresses, and there's plenty of mistresses who are up and coming in Atlanta. So never fear there. There's plenty to choose from.
Wonderful. Marla, thank you so much for your time. Definitely want to be mindful of it because we have been so honored for you to have joined us this evening. Everyone, again, it was a pleasure being here in this space with you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the questions that you asked and the comments and just the support. Marla, I would love if you could just share where people can find you if they want to follow you anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me at my handle here at Marla Stewart. You can follow Velvet Lips at Velvet Lips Sex Ed. It's sex without the E. You can go for Sex Down South, SDS Con. Follow us there. But you can find me on all the social media channels through all of those handles. So yeah, and you can go to my website, velvetlipssexed.com, for more if you want to download instant workshops. You can view them there. And then I'll be at Frolicon. I'll be teaching. Frolicon is a kink conference. I think it's the biggest in the country. I'll be teaching The Charm of Choking mid-October. And that will be the only other conference that I'll be doing in person. So yeah, you can meet me there if you want to go there. So.
And
Yeah,
where is that happening?
That's happening in Atlanta.
Okay, cool. In Atlanta.
So that's in Atlanta. And then, of course, Sex Down South. Go to sexdownsouth.com and get your discounted ticket right now. That's happening next September.
Perfect. Thank you again, Marla. And everyone, make sure that you connect with us at Every Black Body on IG, Twitter, and YouTube, and go to our website, www.everyblackbody.org, and share in the comments what other topics you'd like for us to discuss. Again, it's been a pleasure having this conversation with you, Marla, and wishing everyone a lovely, lovely evening.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Of course. See you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.